Boyfriend forced me to buy expensive furniture I couldn't afford, then demanded I serve him because he paid more. When I tried to leave, he pinned me down and stole my phone. My 25F, soon-to-be ex-boyfriend, 28M, have been living together for the past few months, dating for about 3 years. I work full-time, as does he. He makes significantly more than me. Probably close to 3x more than I do, but I honestly couldn't tell you exactly how much he makes because he's very dodgy about his income. We split our bills. He pays about 60%, which is honestly still a bit tight for me, but I have been making it work, and I have no savings. When we moved in together, we each had our own belongings that we were bringing. I had my bed, he had his, he had a couch, etc. Our plan when moving in was to use his bed as our bed. Mine would be in the guest room because his was larger. We weren't planning on keeping his couch forever, but agreed to buy one at a later time because I couldn't financially swing a deposit, first month's rent, all other moving expenses, etc. plus a new couch. Before move-in day, he threw out his bed and couch and decided he wanted to buy new furniture. He had a bed bug scare due to his elderly grandmother's home having bed bugs, and he thought he brought them to his apartment after visiting her. Ended up not being bed bugs, so I understand why he threw them out. Here's where things get frustrating. He knew that I couldn't afford to buy new furniture at the time, and I would need some time to save up, so he agreed to pay for the furniture and I would pay him back in increments each month. He ended up purchasing a very expensive mattress and a brand new couch, which I was there to help pick out. I told him numerous times that if he really wanted to go with these expensive pieces of furniture, it would be a while before I could pay him back in full for my portion. He proceeded anyways, and I gave him my budget for how much I could pay him each month on top of rent and my personal bills. While I recognize that he has spent a good amount more than I have, I am still living outside of my means with this financial agreement that we have. We have had arguments because of this, and he states that I should just do whatever he asks of me because he has been so generous with finances. He asks dumb things of me all the time. For example, I had gotten home from work early after an extremely long week, and was relaxing on the couch when he comes home. He goes into the kitchen, and I hear him say, "Will you make me a snack?" as he's opening the fridge. I get irritated, because I had just gotten home and wanted to relax, and didn't understand why he couldn't make his own snack as he was standing with his head in the fridge already, so I said no. He gets extremely upset. This turns into a massive argument about how he is completely financially supporting me and I'm just not grateful for it at all, and all he's asking is that I be nice to him. I explained to him that I'm not going to do everything he asks of me simply because he can afford more than I can. I told him that it was unfair for him to use my financial situation as a control tactic. He went on to tell me that I am simply not equal to him because I am a woman and he is a man. This is a wild take, emo, and I should just listen to him and not have an attitude when he asks me to do things. This set me off. I told him that I cannot do it anymore and I would like to move out. He has told me multiple times that he can afford to live here without me, so I figured it wouldn't be an issue. There are other things that led to me calling it quits, like frequent boundary crossing, rude name calling from him, and him being borderline abusive physically. He likes to playfully pin me on the floor, bite, grab, immobilize me, etc. He calls it being playful, but it seriously makes me angry and I have made it very clear to him. Now, I am essentially holed up in our guest bedroom, looking for a way out because I have no savings and living with him has drained my financial resources. I know that the longer I stay here, I will just continue to dig myself deeper in the hole financially. I have family, but they are hours away in a different state, and I cannot leave my job without notice. I've been looking for places in this area that I can afford, but it's an odd time of year to rent and there aren't many places available. I just don't know how to get out before I lose my mind. Any and all advice is welcome. Update: it's 2 days later and I have officially moved out of state. To all those saying he is physically and financially abusive, you are correct. The night after I posted this, he came into the spare bedroom where I was sleeping and woke me up at 1 o'clock in the morning. He grabbed my phone out of the bed, and stormed off with it. I followed him and tried for a few minutes to get my phone back from him. I eventually got it back, and he followed me back downstairs, then upstairs, then back downstairs. He followed me around, grabbing me by my wrists, attempting to pin me onto the floor or the bed. He would pick me up and try to carry me outside of the house as I was yelling at him to stop and just let me go back to sleep. He followed me downstairs where I was getting back in bed to go back to sleep because it was the middle of the night. He jumped in the bed with me after undressing himself and wrapped his arms and legs around me, immobilizing me, and then proceeded to try to bite me. I did poke him in the eye by accident, while trying to shove him off of me. I was swinging my arms at him as much as I could while being pinned down by his arms, legs and entire body weight. He didn't stop until I screamed at him that I wanted nothing to do with him and to leave me the FCK alone. At this point, he becomes furious, gets up and says that if that's how I feel, then I can just get the FCK out right now. He then goes to the closet with my clothes hanging in them and tries to pull my clothes out of the closet. I go to stop him, pulling his arm out of the hangers, and he stumbles back, running into the closet door. He continues to shout about how I can get the FCK out and find somewhere else to stay, or go to a hotel. I broke down sobbing, just completely drained, mentally and physically, after going around for about an hour trying to get him to leave me alone. I end up calling my mom a little after 2 a.m., sobbing, and telling her that I need to come home and I need help. I tell her what's going on, as he, my ex, is still standing over me in the guest bedroom. I'm sitting in the bed and he is standing next to the bed just watching me. As soon as he realizes that I am talking with my mom, he switches up really quick and says to my mother, "I'm really sorry you're dealing with this. She is going through nicotine withdrawal and is treating me like shit." I started yelling at him through my sobbing, with my mother still on the phone, telling him to leave me the FCK alone, to go away and let me go to sleep, etc. He begins recording me on his phone at some point. This goes on for a bit. I have my mom on the phone with me and my ex is just standing in the guest room next to me while I'm sobbing in the bed. I attempt to go upstairs, out onto our back deck to talk to my mom without him standing over me. He follows me, still playing the innocent victim. I again start yelling and telling him to leave me alone. Eventually, he gets irritated enough by my yelling for him to stop following me and leave me alone, and says that he will go somewhere else for the time being. He'll pack a bag and give me time to move my stuff out. My mother is still in the phone, so he is using a very calm tone of voice and acting as though he's been extremely rational and calm the entire time, while I am a hysterical mess. While he is gathering some of his things, my dad wakes up and my mom fills him in on what is going on. My dad immediately said he is going to call the police. My ex overheard this, looked at me and just said that's crazy and walked out about 20 minutes later, after throwing his house key at me. My parents did call the police. They showed up probably 10 to 15 minutes after my ex left the house. I spoke with the police about what was going on, and they informed me that my ex had called them before my parents even had. He called the police immediately after he overheard my dad saying he was going to call the police. He also told the police that I attacked him. I hit him several times in the face, open and closed-handed. He told the police that I punched him in the face. I had a red mark on my wrist from my ex grabbing me that I showed the officer, and he said that there wasn't anything there that he could see and there was no legitimate reason for them to remove either of us from the home. The officer told me that my ex could return to the home if he wished to, and that we would just have to not interact with each other. There would be an affidavit submitted to the court with each of our statements and they will determine if charges will be filed against either of us. The officer left, and returned with a domestic violence resource pamphlet, and asked me to give him the key that my ex had thrown at me before leaving the home. I complied, and the officer told me that my ex had been sitting just down the street from our house, and would be returning in about 30 seconds, but that I need to stay on the guest bedroom level, and my ex needs to stay on the top level and we need to not interact with each other at all. I agree to do that. My ex returns. I am back in bed downstairs, still on the phone with my mom after several hours. My parents decided that they were going to come get me, so they got on the road during my conversation with the police officers. I remain on the phone with my mom all night, attempting to sleep but only being able to doze for a few minutes at a time before waking again. In the morning, my ex comes walking downstairs on the level that is supposed to be off limits to him, per our agreement with the officer. I overhear him on the phone with a reporting center for reporter abuse of adults or children. He gives them my name and information, and I also overhear him say my sister's name and something about violence in that family. About 20 minutes later, he comes downstairs again as I am packing my things. I tell him he needs to go back upstairs and leave me alone. He just says I will. Just so you are aware, I'm having a PFA filed against you, so I need to know when your parents will be here so I can let my attorney know. Protection from abuse order. I ignore him, and he walks back upstairs. I go on with packing my things, and some time later he comes back downstairs. I am in the guest bedroom changing, and he pushes the door open. It wasn't completely latched, he was not supposed to be down there, and starts asking me again, when I am leaving. I tell him to get the fuck out. He can see that I am changing, and stop coming downstairs. He then says I need to know what date you'll be leaving so I can file the PFA. Once I file it, you can't be here. I said okay, great. He walks back upstairs. My mom and dad start talking about how what he is doing is an intimidation tactic, and I'm just questioning why he's claiming he is so afraid of me that he needs a protection order, but he's not afraid of coming downstairs and trying to talk to me multiple times, walking around for no reason on speakerphone with the reporting center. The whole situation just felt like he was baiting me. My parents eventually showed up. They called the police ahead of time and asked that an officer meet them at the house because my ex was still there, with free range of the house while I was still holed up in the basement bedroom. My ex, of course, spoke with the officer when he arrived, and appeared calm, stating that he will go elsewhere while we do what we need to do to get my stuff moved out. He stated all he asks is that we just lock up after we leave. The officer stays outside the home while we move all of my belongings. He ends up staying for probably close to 1.52 hours. After packing all of my things, I tell the officer that the home is locked, the key is left by the door, and I will be returning to my home state. I went to my office building. I had spoken with my supervisor early that morning, so she was aware of what was happening. I met with her, and she informed me that they understood me having to leave so abruptly and they would be paying out all of my sick leave and PTO to cover me for the next 4 weeks, and that if at any point I wanted to return, they would reserve my position. I thanked her, and apologized profusely about the situation. I feel so horrible about leaving a position with no notice at all, and one that has been a really fantastic job that I saw myself staying at long term, and was so generous and understanding about my situation. I am now back in my home state, with my parents and siblings, and I feel like I am living in a fever dream. None of it feels real at the moment. This is possible the worst 24 to 48 hours I've ever experienced. I am not looking forward to what my life will look like if I have to go to court over this, if my ex actually files for a PFA and/or his statement leads the courts to believe that charges need to be filed on me. I don't know what is going to happen next, but I am out and I am safe. Next story: boyfriend left me right after my cancer diagnosis, then I found out he had a fiancée. Years later, I'm a guest speaker at university while he's still working as security guard. When I was 21, I dated a guy who was too old for me. Kevin was 37, an older student in my university program. I'd just gotten out of a bad relationship and thought Kevin was great. Of course, it was red flags all over the place, but I was so naive back then that stupid me didn't question this. Kevin and I dated for 6 months. He quickly told me that he loved me and asked me, pretty aggressively, to move to his home city to be with him after graduation. Great, right? Still ignoring the red flags. Except in my last semester, I was diagnosed with cancer and my world kind of fell apart after that. The day I got my diagnosis, Kevin made out with another woman at a party in front of me, and I left the party in tears. He broke up with me that night by email, saying that we weren't a good fit anymore because of my impending medical emergency, that he was only with me because he took pity on me after the end of my previous abusive relationship, and by the way, all our friends thought I was annoying and no one liked me. I felt punched in the gut. My memories of that week are a blur. I had to drop out in the middle of the semester and get a medical leave of absence with the university. In the meantime, Kevin would follow me around campus demanding to know why I wouldn't talk to him and that I forgive him. I remember looking at him like he was insane. "So you're apologizing for what you did?" I asked. "Of course not, I didn't do anything wrong," he answered. "But it's not fair that you're angry at me like this." I told him to go to hell and just focused on getting my paperwork squared away and moving back home for what became a lot of chemo. Honestly, this period of my life was a fucking nightmare and I don't like thinking about it. I became suicidal and was diagnosed with depression, so I was seeing a psychiatrist while getting chemo. I lost most of my friends because I guess people didn't know how to deal with my illness. A few stuck by me, and those people are not only still my friends today, but now I even work with some of them. In the months after I left school, Kevin would badger me over text saying he didn't know what happened between us and demanding again that I forgive him. I was in the middle of more chemo, so I told him I forgave him just so he'd leave me alone. As soon as I forgave him, he vanished and I never heard from him again. I blocked him on Facebook just to be sure he couldn't slink back. Later that year, between chemo, I run into this strange woman at a university event off campus. I've never met her before, have no idea who she is. A bunch of students and alumni are having dinner together and she's talking about her fiancé. Guess who it is? Kevin, of course. I'm confused because a few months of dating is a short time to know someone before you get engaged, but what do I know since Kevin was very fast in telling me he loved me and asking me to move in with him. But when I ask how long they've been together, she says something crazy like 3 years. At this point I'm in total shock and realize Kevin was having an affair with me, that our whole time together was a lie. I had no idea. I left in a daze and cried in the parking lot. In hindsight I should have warned this woman, but at the time I was in shock, sick, not interested in starting drama at a table full of strangers, and I was exhausted. I thought later of finding her on Facebook, but I didn't know her name and I worried telling her would start another round of harassment from Kevin, so I dropped it. So the good news is, I'm obviously still here and happily in remission. 2 years after leaving school, I finally felt human again and went back to finish my degree. By then I was doing really good. Made new friends, finished therapy, started my career. Life is totally different now. I'm well known in my field and have been invited back to my university as a guest of honor. My professors want me to speak to the students and I'll have a chance to network with other visiting alumni who are a big deal in my industry. It's an amazing opportunity and I was looking forward to it. Only problem is, I saw Kevin's on the guest list, and so is a woman sharing his last name who I assume is his now wife. When I saw it, my heart sank. The guest list is small, maybe 50 alumni, so we're bound to run into each other. I can't not go because this event is important and I already promised I'd be there. Plus, I don't want to avoid doing things out of fear of running into this asshole from my past. How do I handle running into Kevin again? Do I treat him like a stranger? What if he tries hugging me like we're old friends? It's something he would do. I also have no clue if I should say something to his wife. I don't want to open this can of worms from my past. I'm losing sleep over this and don't know what to do. Update. Well, thanks for your feedback, guys. Wanted to give you an update. So something I failed to mention in my last post is that my mom used to teach at my alma mater before she recently retired. She didn't know about my brief relationship with Kevin years ago. After writing my post, I decided to share with her everything that happened. Mom immediately got this weird look on her face and said she knew exactly who I was talking about because she used to teach in my department. She said, "I don't think Kevin will be a problem for you." When I asked why, she said, "Trust me, you'll see. That guy is kind of a loser." So I went to the event, and it was amazing. I took some of the advice here and brought a girlfriend so I would never be alone in case Kevin tried to pull something. I met a bunch of alumni and ran into a couple people who I lost touch with when I got sick. Everybody were thrilled to hear how well I'm doing, and my speech got an ovation when I was done. Anyway, Kevin showed up with his wife. I don't know how to say this without sounding mean, but he's gotten fat and is going bald. I was surprised at how old he looked until someone told me he's almost 50 now, which means he lied to me when we were dating and said he was younger than he really was. Also, I heard from old classmates that Kevin is still studying for his degree, plus working nights as a security guard now. Kevin was the only person at the event who avoided me. It was obvious. I thought he was going to avoid me all night until I accidentally found myself alone for 30 seconds, which is when he nervously approached me to congratulate me. I smiled, said, "Thanks," and kept moving. He tried cracking a dumb joke to me later but I just ignored him, which seemed to frustrate him. Overall I just spent the night focused on the people around me and forgot he existed. Interestingly, he managed to repeatedly piss off a bunch of people, including his wife and one of the deans, throughout the night with stupid comments. It got so bad that people started a running joke about what an insensitive moron Kevin was. I'm so glad I went and didn't allow one jerk from my past to make me hide. I had a great time and was surprised at how unafraid I felt when I saw Kevin again. The memories from that time of my life were so traumatic, but now he's just some jackass I once knew. I'm not sure now WTF I ever saw in him or why I was ever scared of him. Oh, and by the way, I recently started a great new job that came with a big raise, which means I'll have my student loans paid off this year. Life is good. Thanks for your help, Reddit. Edit. 2 things I wanted to add. An acquaintance recently told me that apparently Kevin and his now wife were in an open relationship for a long time, including while he and I were together, and that she closed the relationship again a few years ago because she got annoyed. I can only imagine the shenanigans. I feel better knowing he didn't cheat on her, even though he still cheated on me. And of course he didn't tell me about his wife at all. Whatever. My favorite part of the evening. I blocked Kevin on Facebook years ago, so he's had no updates whatsoever on my life, including the fact that I go by my birth name now. In college, everybody called me by a nickname, but no one's used it now in years. So all night he kept calling me by this super old nickname. People kept looking at him like he was crazy and asking, "Why are you calling her that?" And Kevin got super frustrated because he realized everybody was in on some joke that he didn't understand. No one would clue him in, I guess. Comment where Op has replied, "Ashley Boom, oh, this update gives me life. I'm so happy to hear of your success, congratulations and well done. So glad you were able to finally move on from this idiot. You are clearly 2 very different people. Oop, it's so obvious now that the only reason we were even together was because I was young and naive. Now that I'm almost 30, he doesn't make any sense to me. It's so weird and creepy.